So how does Mona heal? Oh yeah, here's her matter. Everything in the book is super duper gray tone. So the matter with the jet black ink, it like really stands out. Okay, so the number one thing that helps me deal with my mental health, consider this my prescription for creative practices. The first thing that really helps me is Artner Love. And Artnering is a word that I came up with my primary Artner, Lauren Larkin, because I needed a word to describe this connection that we had, because it was more than friendship. Because I feel like when you have a collaborator, either you work together or you're just supportive of each other's individual projects, it's an essential part of my support system, because as an artist, a lot of the time you work by yourself if you're drawing. And so that's one reason, like Mona playing in the orchestra, I love, because I played in orchestra, because it was great to have a whole orchestra of Artners. So then it's, oh, look at what we made together instead of look what I made by myself. And so I wanted to have the love story in Mona actually be an Artner love story, because Mona is super sad because her best friend Nash just moved away, but then new girl Haley shows up. And it's just instant Artner crush, because this has happened to me where I see somebody really shining and doing their passion, and it's just so like, who is that person? I need to make some art with them. But it can be confusing when you're young, because you're like, what are these feelings? But to me as an adult, having this framework and this language, it means that I reframe the people in my life like, oh, this person is my Artner. Like, they're part of my support system. They've got my back. They're here with me in the studio, even if I'm by myself. And it's really helpful to deal with all the more challenging aspects of being a creative. So like here on the left is Mona reading a poem of hers to Haley, which is very like vulnerable, but that's part of what Artnership is to practice coming out of your shell with someone who's showing you it's a safe space, like it's welcome to come out. And then on the right is our Artnership poster, which I stole from Picasso, because steal from the best. And so this is sort of the tenets of Artnership. So with my Artners, these are the 5 things that we always focus back on and we sort of check in about. Because these are to counteract all the more negative sides of the creative life. So we have connection to battle isolation, flexibility to counteract our overly high expectations for ourselves, success, because a lot of us struggle financially and it's really confusing to like ask for money for your work. Whimsy, because sometimes you forget to have fun while you're focused so much on your goals. And then healing, which this talk is really focused on, because creativity is so healing and it's such a resource that we can use to help heal ourselves. It's pretty amazing. So I Artner dare you to activate any Artners in your support system that you already have. Okay, so next is make a self-care plan. I am so passionate about making a self-care plan that this is in the back of the dark matter of Mona Starr. So I have my plan that's filled in, which this is the updated one. So the font is getting teeny tiny as I keep adding things to it. And then there's a blank one so you can fill out your own. And so this is basically just making lists. What helps me out physically? Like what helps me emotionally? What helps me mentally? And these are things that help you deal with stress, things that help self-soothe you. That's hard to say, self-soothe. The things that you know help you out. And then on the right side, I have, making note of like what things you can like take every day to help you feel better. So like as a vegetarian, like fish oil was helpful for me. And then you have your support system, which are just taking toll of the people who've got your back. Because sometimes you forget that there's a lot of people in your support system. If you include your ancestors, your spirit animals, your biological family, your world family, even historical mentors. So Jim Henson is one of mine. So even if I've never met Jim Henson, but sometimes I'll sort of pull on his spirit in my studio. And then of course the stress warning signs, which I normally just pay attention to. And once I see flare up, it's like, oh shoot, okay, what can we do from the left side of the self-care plan? Just pick something and do it to help you right now. And at the bottom, I have my red flag ritual, which is what I do when I'm really losing control and can't think straight and not making smart decisions and just sort of need to do a reset. And I have a whole talk about making a self-care plan. So if you go to my website, in my YouTube videos, it's in there. Okay, so next one, because I'm going to go through these fast. Oh yeah, the self-care plan used to be much shorter, so that's it on the left. And if you're interested in mindfulness, the tree of contemplative practices is pretty much almost like a self-care plan, because the fancy word for this is contemplative practice, which these are also things that are restorative and help you be present in the moment instead of being in the past or the future. Let's see. Next, talk therapy. So this is the only thing in my list that I feel like would need money. The rest of these things you can access for free pretty much. And so talk therapy, I found it helpful in periods where I've really struggled with like depressive bouts. So I guess it's maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times in my life where I've really needed help with somebody to work with for, maybe 6 months. But sometimes you need to speak, depending on the relationship you have with a therapist. Maybe you have the same person for like years. So, and it doesn't have to be a regular therapist. I wanted to draw. I've never seen it in a young adult graphic novel, actually a therapist as a regular character. So I just wanted to make it normal, because I know lots of people who go to a therapist, but maybe your therapist is your book club, or maybe it's your hairstylist. So as long as you're talking about, have a safe space to talk about what's going on, that's essential. Then next we got creative expression. Of course, because art is a healing practice. So it could be journaling like Mona, who's more of a writer. Maybe it's doing poetry. Maybe it's doing drawing. So actually she does some collage, because collage is really fun when you're like upset. Yeah, tear stuff up. Painting. Here Mona's having a marker dance party with Haley on the right, because dance really helps me. It's my most recent favorite creative outlet, which is very new and sort of terrifying at first, because I don't have the vocabulary as like I do with visual art. So Mona is intimidated by dance, so they just dance with their hands. But it also could be playing music. Maybe your creative expression is gardening. Maybe it's cooking. It could be so many different things. But just having some outlet is helpful. Then self-study. This one is, I've been doing a lot of this lately, because you can't really change your problems unless you understand what your problems are. And nobody else can tell you how to operate this machine that is your mind. Only you can really go in there and map it out, especially even for someone else to help you. So for me, I have like a spiral notebook, and where I'll just dump all the stuff out of my head and start to journal about different topics and just dive into things with writing. Because I find maybe you're more of a typer, but with handwriting, I don't know, I think I can unlock stuff from my subconscious when I write it out, something about that physical process. So for Mona, she models this, even paying attention, well, what triggers my matter? What helps me and what hurts me? So I've definitely, a lot of my self-care plan I've come up with because I've paid attention to the things, how they affect me, to notice the things that always bring me down versus the things that always make me feel better. Because once you're aware of it, then you can change those patterns. You can even use an app. I use the iMood Journal app, but there's lots of apps that you can use too to help you track your mood and to help you understand more of why you feel the way you do when you do. But it's hard when you're young because you're just watching these things play out. So as you get a little older, then you can look back and sort of be more aware of oh, this is always happening in that situation. Like I'm moving right now. And so I know that moving is hard. So I've built in extra support because I've moved lots of times and I know it's hard. So instead of just having it be hard again, I was like, you know what? This time it's not going to be hard. Anyway, so journaling sort of ties into self-study. I forgot about journaling until recently and got back into it. But the picture here I have is of Mona spitting out a ball of thoughts, because I feel like my thoughts look like that until I journal and pull it apart. Because normally I have multiple ideas and thoughts just all tangled up in a ball. And so I can't say it out loud because I don't know it's just a big old mess. So journaling helps me detangle it. So at least I can tell what on earth is going on in there. Then number 6, narrative therapy. I learned about this just recently because I was doing this project where I was writing words on my arm. So as a person who has a lot of thoughts in their head, I've noticed over the years that some of those thoughts are not true. Some of those thoughts are things that maybe, I don't know, maybe a bully said to me, or maybe a teacher said to me, or maybe some kid on the bus said to me, but maybe it wasn't actually true, or maybe it was something that used to be true, but it's not true anymore. So suddenly I realized that, wait a minute, some of my thoughts are wrong. And so I flipped. So once I identified the words like crazy, because I kept saying like, oh, I'm crazy, I'm crazy, I'm crazy. But then I was like, no, I'm not crazy. I'm actually a visionary. It's just the way my imagination and my brain works. It doesn't feel normal compared to other people. So if I don't see other people who think the same way like I do, then I just assume there's something wrong with me. Like I must be insane because I'm the only one who's like over here talking to this rock. Like it's real or something. Like, oh, it's weird, Laura Lee. But just because you don't see yourself reflected in the people around you doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. So journaling and getting to know yourself can help you figure out like who you really are versus what's just a lie. So for me, I flipped the script, so to speak. So instead of crazy, I was visionary. It's like, oh, I'm not broken. I'm actually pretty resilient. And that, I'm not doomed. I'm lucky. Because sometimes I'll think like, I'll focus on the negative, like we're doomed. But then I step back, you're like, actually, Laura Lee, we've been really lucky in our life. Like you got to change how you look at the situation. So I wrote those words on my arm for 3 months. It used to be 13 words. Then it was down to 6 words in Mona. And this past summer, I was down to 1 word, worthy. So I'm very proud that I've been able to change my story and let new words sink into my mind so I don't think that I'm crazy anymore. Anyway. And I threw nature therapy in here too, because nature, being outside in nature is hugely part of my self-care plan. It's one reason that living in New York was really hard for my mental health because it was so overstimulating and it was just so much all the time. So being back in Virginia and like being out with the trees, it's instantly calming. I'm sure a scientist can tell us about the chemicals in the brain and how it affects us, but let's just say it's awesome. Okay, 7. One of my favorite things to help deal with my mental health is music. Oh my God, I'm such an audiophile. I make a new playlist every month or maybe 2 months if I'm running behind. So listening to new music, having music I'm excited about, making playlists, sharing those playlists, it's part of what makes me excited to be alive. Because there's like a little record player in me, which I draw in the book. And I found that music, if I put Prince on my record player, then I'm thinking of that Prince track instead of thinking about an obsessive thought, let's say about something bad that happened the day before, and I'm just like reliving it over and over and over and over and over in my head. So music helps me put better stuff on my inner jukebox. And it helps me curate my mood because I used to listen to sad music every night before I went to bed. And it was like, maybe this is not good for my mental health. I mean, it feels nice to listen to this sad Nick Drake right now, but maybe I should do like a listen to a meditation or something else instead. It's not so depressing. So it depends on you, because sometimes listening to sad music makes you feel better when you're sad. Sometimes it makes you feel worse. So I definitely make a lot of playlists to help curate my mood, and also with this lyrics to help me get through, because musicians will put in words what I do in pictures. So it's kind of awesome when you're making work for each other. Oh yeah, and I can't even make art in the studio without music either. Oh, and Mona, she's also an orchestra because playing music is also excellent. I sing a lot at home. I don't play the violin anymore, but I make up a lot of songs, especially for my cat. We have a lot of songs. And I put one of my playlists in the back of the book because I do that for every book. So these were a lot of songs that were on my rotation while making the book, but also, fun fact, when you're flipping through the book, you see this scrolly music bars going through. I actually designed it so if you go through in each one of those you play the next track of the playlist. It's like an actual soundtrack, like it's a movie. I know there were song lyrics. I wanted to put them in the book, but for legal reasons, we decided not to, but it was a brilliant idea. Okay, so 8, the next thing that really helps my mental health is volunteering. This is something that I did a ton of when I was young. And I feel like this is the number one thing that helped me from getting super depressed in high school, because I was a Girl Scout and I volunteered for so many different things. So this is like based on me being a congressional aide in DC back in the 90s. I also painted a lot of murals. I taught classes. Oh my gosh. I was even in like a theater troupe about social issues, which it's a secret. And this is Mona volunteering at the Haven, which is the day shelter, like 2 blocks from me, because I volunteered at the Haven. And to me, this like service helps because it takes you out of your head and out of your own like little bubble of a world and your issues, and be like, oh, here, takes you out into the real world with like real people. Because I also like to be in spaces that were not my high school in high school. And it really, I don't know, it's nice to like serve a different purpose where it's like really clear, like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do and this is helpful. And I don't know, I just find that it was what helped me stop from getting stuck in my own head, was to get out into the real world. And especially just being around other nice people. And so the Kennedy Center calls it being actually a citizen artist, when you are an artist who also likes to connect with the broader world around you and with your community, and find ways to use the arts to actually help build the community. So anyway, so that side of things, it really, like the artivist side. Oh yeah, artivism. This is something I really wanted to touch on in Mona. So actually Mona and her Artners, they do a project where they Artner with like the whole school. So I really wanted to just model stuff that I've done where I use art to bring people together, because it's amazing what you can do when you have an idea and other people are, I don't know, you have a little Artner crush going on. Okay, then 9, meditation and yoga. I know what you're thinking, mindfulness, blah. Wait, still on the computer. Yeah, and actually, when I first tried meditation, when I was in my early 20s, when I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and I was like trying to be a runner, and it was just a terrible idea. And I actually hated meditation. I think it's really hard when you get started, because you're like, what's the point of this? But after getting back into it maybe 5 years ago, now I'm like really like, okay, it really helps me, because I'll do it every night before I go to sleep for 10 minutes, and it really helps with my insomnia. But so I'm not going to tell you that you have to start a meditative practice, because I know it's not, it might not click with you at this moment. But what I will point out is that why meditation and yoga is helpful is because really it's just about embodiment. Because a lot of us are living in our head. A lot of us are not in our body. And so maybe then you have health issues because you're not even feeling like you're not connected with what's going on in your body, which happened to me because I was in my head so much. So things like physical exercise, yoga, and meditation, these are things that just reconnect you with your physical body. Because I think it's a really big struggle right now, especially when the world doesn't feel like a safe space. You don't want to be in your body. Like, I love escapism too. I'm binging on Downton Abbey right now because I'm moving. And so part of me is at Downton Abbey. So that's fine and everything. But then I have to also come back to my body and be like, oh, wait, we haven't had lunch. We need to eat something. But the me in Downton Abbey isn't hungry because that's in my imagination. It's like, no, we're here in reality. We have to like feed ourselves, Laura Lee. But yes, you can speak with a British accent all day and that's fine. Then the last thing on my list is advocating for yourself, self-advocacy, which is something that I never thought about until I needed to advocate for myself. And this is basically when there's a problem and maybe you don't know what the problem is, but you have to find help for it. And it can be difficult if it's not a problem that's easy to identify. So for me, I was having a pain in my back, which Mona has in the story. And it kept coming up and doctors would be like, we don't know what's wrong. And like, you're fine. And what's hard, and it's, I don't know, when you feel like something's wrong and someone is telling you that you're fine, and you wonder if you're crazy, then maybe you start to believe them. So it means by connecting with your body, like to trust what's going on in there, and to listen to the signals from your body instead of ignore it and pretend like you're a robot, because we're not robots. We're like biological creatures. So if there is something wrong, don't feel like you're annoying somebody to like speak up about it. Like do something about it. Like it's okay. Your body's telling you something. You gotta listen.